Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So excited to have our friend here back again, Janis joining us. Some may call her a psychic medium, some call her an empath, some call her Heyoka. Yeah, she is. She's a real storyteller, and she's here to talk all about the work that she does and how she can help you communicate as well. So welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm sitting here kind of bringing in some things to talk about today. It's always a surprise for me as well as you.
See, but you're off key, right? You go
I'm
right
off
up.
key.
I love it. Yeah,
So,
no.
it occurred to me. It occurred to me that we've all got. I'm always trying. I'm going to save the world one day, just out of pure humor. They're going to give in to me and quit arguing about it and just laugh each other off, because at least the rest of the world is not me. But I got dressed this morning. I put on these little cowrie shells, and they're from my mother, and they're important to us, although you wouldn't know it to look at us. I grew up mostly around between the marshes of the Okefenokee and the swamps of St. Simon's Island, the Barrier Islands off the coast of Georgia. Barrier Island, St. Simon's Island, was one of the islands that were literally left to the enslaved people who lived there. The masters thought it was too expensive to haul them all the way back to the mainland. And so this beautiful island was left to the inhabitants. And they made the best out of it. They really did. They did not encourage light-skinned people to be on the island, but one of my granddaddy's fondest wishes was to live there. So I was about 7 years old, and they built a brick house over on the island. I grew up we've been talking about the island. I was born in Brunswick. My granddaddy took care of me a lot, and he was a mason. We'd sit on the sidewalk, and men would come up, and they'd shake his hand a certain way, and I'd always try to see, what was the special handshake that they did, and I never could catch it. But I grew up in this very closed environment without realizing, sort of like the Truman story. I didn't realize until recently that those barrier islands were, in effect, self-protected, because the owners went away and abandoned it. They abandoned it to the good senses of the people who lived there. When they figured out they could only have to take care of themselves, they started living pretty well. There was a lot of fish. There was fresh water on the island. There's lots of room. They already had little cabins in some places, and they made the best of it. And it was really a great place. White people, of course, came. The channel between St. Simon's and Jekyll is used for great big ships. One landed on the coast a few years ago. But this insular place had a particular lingo to it. When I get tired and I just start talking, because that's how I grew up talking. Some people don't understand what I'm saying because I'm just talking. I have
Love
syllables.
You're talking. You're great.
Yeah, we're just talking regular stuff. I grew up to respect people of color and to envy them, their beautiful skin tone, albeit strange among a South Georgia white girl. My mother was of German descent, and my daddy was of Native descent. Melungeon, Native American, Portuguese, all the dark, swarthy, beautiful skinned people in the world. And I got born white. I mean, I glow in the dark. And I have this lingo, but the lingo came with a way of looking at the world. And so I've realized as Heyoka, I learned how to relate to the world before I knew really what the world was. I knew how to listen to which way the winds came and how to smell them and taste them on my mouth to know which way they came from. If it was from my aunt's house on the other side of the island, if it was coming from Jekyll. So I'm just looking at the natural pointers around me. My mother and daddy realized the political arena that they lived in, and they decided that they would move.
Okay.
And my dad forced himself to go to this little school in Atlanta when he got out of the military. It was just this little old place called Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
But he got a couple of degrees out of it, and he got really good. He was really good with small motors anyway. And they traveled north to south, north to south. A lot of our accent changed. A lot of our education changed. My eyes were wide open. Oh my God, there's shopping malls in the world. There's
Yeah.
people, there's dark skinned people all over the world. And I love them.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see really black skinned people. Have you ever seen a purple person?
Mm-hmm.
They're so beautiful. Oh my goodness. I grew up kind of, well, you can see I'm kind of jealous of the different skin colors. And I think of these cowrie beads and how my mother understood the history of the island that her daddy wanted to live on. She understood the history of the location and how the Native Americans that were there got pushed out, some got left, then the black people got pushed in, and then the white people pushed out, and just the Spaniards and the French and the English, and everybody wanted a piece of this island.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was insular, that's the history that I grew up absorbing. I learned state history in all the different schools I went to, but I absorbed the one that my people came from.
Yeah.
We all do that. We need to do that as a part of a human structure cellularly.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of related to where we grew up.
Yeah.
It's the foods our people ate 7 generations back. That's the food that we will best digest today.
Yeah.
What we eat today, 7 generations forward, that's the food they're going to best digest.
Mm-hmm.
I've got close relatives that can't stand seafood. I can't get enough of it. With that influence comes our expressions to the world.
Yeah.
I talk funny. I have different references than a lot of people. Without realizing it, I grew up among the Creole people from Africa who were learning American,
Mm-hmm.
not French like in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a different kind of Creole. It's a different kind of looking at the world, a Gullah Geechee that related to what they have in their hands.
Yeah.
It's really good if we could all learn to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Hold this history in my hands and remember where I came from doesn't really match what I look like.
Yeah.
But 7 generations back, this was my people.
Mm-hmm.
The cowrie shells showed a relationship to the earth, to the sea. I'm an old sea girl. Where we grew up in, that culture, the histories, the myth tales, the boogeyman stories,
Mm-hmm.
all lousy words like that.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we all move around, we're all on our cell phones. I can pick up and call Dubai, South Africa, Peoria. I can just pick up and call it. It doesn't even cost me, but the cost of my computer hookup.
Mm-hmm.
I can look at you and talk to you like this. We exchange our cultures and we have this opportunity to learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's kind of like when I spoke with Charles D. Smith, the NBA basketball player, not too long back. And the way that a basketball team works together is sort of like how Team Earth needs to work together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of arguing because this is the way that you plant a potato.
Yeah.
No, instead of that, you say, guess what? I can plant a potato this way too.
Mm-hmm.
And we share and admit where we could use more education more understanding, and where we really excel. We don't have to be egotistical and say, man, man, man. We can
Mm-hmm.
do this one thing well. People get so caught up thinking other people can do things better than themselves. Everybody can do something really well. They probably learned as a child. It
Mm-hmm.
may not look like that now. It may
Yeah.
have grown up into something huge, like a multi-million-dollar corporation. But when we get lost in the world, like right now, there's so much going on. There's craziness in politics. There's wildness in the religions.
Yeah.
Everybody's fighting over a piece of,
Mm-hmm.
well, the earth, and that's what we've already got there. So why are we fighting over it?
True.
That just makes no sense to me at all. As an intuitive person, for about the last 12 years, I've been talking about this big, sort of like a windstorm blowing through our galaxies, our universes, across all of those universes, like you see in the Hubble photographs.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking about this for a long time. A couple of days ago, there's this big scientific review came out that there is a solar wind blowing
Ah.
through the galaxies. And yeah, nobody listens to the white girl. That's my punishment for, being who I am this time. So I'm trying to get people to find our joy, remember that we are as smart, as good looking, and everybody likes us
True.
as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up in different places. Rather than you and I arguing about who's got the best looking hair, we could, like share hair cutters, or stylists.
Your extensions, but yes, same
Yes,
thing.
yes. Well, we share these things. When the basketball teams played together, they competed against each other.
Mm.
They did not draw blood and go to war.
Mm-hmm.
Countries can compete with each other without fighting. We do that in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
People in town can compete with each other. High school basketball, the local football team, the old ladies pinochle players. There's competition that helps us get better. We should engage in that. When someone comes up to argue with me or to you, and you just see them wanting to pick a fight,
Mm-hmm.
agree with them.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly something's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Ask them what it is.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to be defensive and assume you know what they're mad about. Could be they spilt their coffee. Assuming things about other people, assuming that they're just like they used to be and they'll never change, that shuts down our information input.
Mm-hmm.
We cheat ourselves of new information, and the loser is us.
Oh. Yeah.
The people that ignored me for many years because I
Oh.
was so weird. Ha ha ha.
Mm-hmm.
You little basketball players, guess who I talk to? Um, I enjoy trying to bring back joy. I mean, people have been trying to kick it out of me all my life because how dare I have fun in a world that's so terrible? But after all these years, I still see this great place to live. So when I work with people, if I have an influence over my readings, that's it. I'm going to try to help people find their best answer, their best answer. That's why I tell a general story specifically about the person. It can remind them of their history, their childhood. I mean, past life therapy can come from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to go back hundreds and thousands of lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
But to pull our stories together, to see them for how lucky we are that that's our story instead of somebody else's,
Mm-hmm.
we can start to take pride in our current place in the world. And that can help us make better decisions. It can relax us, take some of the raw out of us. We have mothers. Our mothers have stories. Our fathers have stories. Those stories are how it is that we relate to things now. To change the way that we relate to things now, they're giving us trouble. We don't like them. People are mean to us. Everybody just looks at us bad. We need to look at ourselves first to see why it is we think that way. My parents had a great opportunity to teach me that people of color were others.
Yeah.
And instead, they took me up and down and out of my skin for all my life. And so I ended up being the other. I actually, had to carry a green card in one place. So I've been the other. It turns out the world is full of others. We learn our stories, our histories, and we hear them without anybody pointing a finger or saying that's because and this is why. It's just a story. The information can slip into our consciousnesses gently.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to feel blame. We don't even have to explain to anybody how that story touched us. It's like the movie Old Yeller, who doesn't cry, but everybody has a different reason for it. So to get a reading from me or anybody else, to get some sense of what's going on behind your very own curtain, and you talk to a wizard.
Yeah.
This is why people come to me. This is how I have access to do what I do. Remember, my plot is to bring joy back to the world, just honest to goodness joy, because why not? It feels a lot better than fear and hatred, and it's easily accessible. But we have to learn how to do that. Just because it's doable doesn't mean it's easy. So the stories I tell can help people find that path, how to make them have more ease as they shift to a more comfortable expression of themselves and be happier. And then they can smile and, you know, help me help the world.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was a lot of story.
That's great. But just remind us how we could reach you since we're over. You got to remind everyone your website, phone number, how we can contact you. We still have time to talk.
Oh yeah. Well, because of family here at the house, contact me by email. Send me an email. You can message me on Facebook at Janis Reed. I'm the goddess in training. Or you can email me at goddessjanis@hotmail.com. And it's just like it sounds. It's all one lettered size, and it's GODDESSJANIS at hotmail.com.
Yeah.
I am Janis. I'm not particularly Janice. So that's the email my mom gave me, along with the cowrie beads. And so get me at goddessjanis@hotmail.com. Send me a message. We'll set up an appointment time. Stories take as long as they take. When I start talking, I take a day or two to learn the story, to absorb it. I dream for the person the night before. I sit and talk to all the world's animals and inputs and teachers. And then when our appointment time comes, whoever I'm talking to and myself, we're the very first ones to hear the story.
Yeah.
And it's the only time I'll tell it because it's a personal story. I won't repeat somebody else's story to someone else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. And just to remind everyone, Hey Yoga, when I mention Hey Yoga, not everybody knows, right? New listeners each and every week. Just tell me briefly what that means again.
Okay.
I
Well,
know because you told me, but
I should probably diffuse that one every time. It's another strange thing to be a white girl, to be Heyoka. First off, to be a Caucasian, to be female, and to be noticed, to be seen and recognized by the Lakota Sioux who recognized me as Heyoka. I was visited by the Thunder Beings one evening during what I thought would be a storm party. I lived out in Oklahoma facing the plains. It's one of the most beautiful places to, it's almost as good as watching a storm come up over the sea. Just miles and miles of waving prairie grass as the storm rolls across in waves. It's just, anyway, that's what the party was for. But when the storm came close to the house, lightning bolts, about 18, 20 inches long, little balls of lightning, size of my head, maybe a little bigger, started zipping into my apartment house, into my apartment, not just the building. And then it specifically started entering me. There was a dozen or so people in the house, and it went on for a couple of seconds before people realized that they weren't imagining this, and so most everybody left.
Yeah.
A Vietnam veteran graciously stayed with me. He was, without understanding it, I didn't know it at the time, he was already having flashbacks. There was a battle going on. He was going to save the woman. And his dear friend, the poet, loved him dearly, and he stayed too to keep the warrior safe.
Yep.
After a while, the poet took the warrior out and saved him because of the flashings. They went into the house, they zipped up and down the hallway, in and out of the light sockets, the television set, the refrigerator, oven, in and out of my fingers, out my nose. It looked like something only
Wow.
a drunk movie creator would have created a movie like that. I had no idea what had gone on, but it didn't kill me. I laid on my couch while this zipped around in my living room and in my head and out my foot and in my foot and out my head for about 8 hours. I was protected. I have my mom's Afghan pulled up over me. That was it. And I kept watching this stuff happen. It was just, I was not that drunk. I was not doing it should have been something like an acid trip, but it happened and happened. When dawn came, the storm broke, it went away. The warrior was back at my front door to make sure I lived through it. A couple of weeks later, and everything after that looked very bright. I have to say, noises were more fine. I could make out noises from a town 20 miles away. All of my senses were already heightened, but then this really cranked it up a notch, as they'd say. A couple of weeks later, I was with a friend of mine further out into the plains on Indian land in an Indian bar, 10 o'clock Sunday morning. She went to go pick up last night's paycheck. She was a singer. And I stayed at the bar surrounded by Indian men drinking beer on a Sunday morning in a bar 100 miles from anywhere else. Probably the only white girl in there, for 100 miles. And I watched this little red truck come up, pull up out of the prairie, pulled up next to my big car, and the man hopped out and made eye contact with me from his car. And he walked into the building, just looking straight at me. He never lost contact with my eyes. He walked up to me at the bar and he said, hey, I just came to tell you you're not crazy.
Yeah.
You're Heyoka. And he looked over my shoulder to all the people in the bar and he said, hey, what are you thinking? They all, hey, and they raised their beers up to me and gave me a cheers. And I'm thinking, what on earth have they called me?
Yep.
It took years to figure it out. As the man left, he looked up to the heavens and made the comment, oh, great spirit, you sure can pick them. I don't know how she's going to do it. She's a white girl. Man, I'm a red man. I can't, it's been hard for me.
Yeah.
And that's the only clue I had what Heyoka was. The word, the term is very specific to a particular group of Native Americans, and not all of them. Wow. This was Lakota Sioux out in Oklahoma. The thing is, after the Thunder Beings come to visit you, I think Geronimo had a dream. I forget how Black Elk it came to him. For me, it came the traditional way. Thunder Beings came and anointed me.
Wow.
Had it been lightning, I'd have been dead.
Wow.
But because it was Thunder Beings, they kind of rewired me. I'm trying to be sweet. I've been rewired. I've also had my head examined. There's nothing wrong with my head, but I haven't died yet.
Amazing.
Really, I've had a lot of encounters. Had a billy goat knock my head off.
Oh my gosh.
Turned upside down, head driven into all kind of weird things.
Yeah.
But like Geronimo and Black Elk and a few other great people in the world, Heyoka, I will go back to spirit when spirit decides, not when circumstances choose.
Yeah. Well,
meanwhile, I'm laughing my way.
Of course you are. Janis, remind us how we can reach you. We are out of time. Can't believe it goes so quick. Yeah.
Thank you. I get to talking, and that's how I go. I start talking and telling a story. Contact me. Send me an email. Goddess Janis, all one word. I'm a little goddess, short and sweet. My name is Janis.
Great.
And that's my treat. At hotmail.com. Where else would you find a goddess?
Exactly.
So goddess Janis at hotmail.com. Send me a message through Facebook at Janis Reed.
Thank you so much. Really.
Let me tell you a story. Contact me. Let me tell you a story.
Yeah, because that's what she does the best. She is a storyteller. Janis, thank you so much for being here, for joining us. Hey, Yoka, again, love to have you here. Have a fantastic day. And to all of our listeners, please stay tuned. More of the show is on the way.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.